The Shadow Base 800 series from Be Quiet's a newly developed family of PC cases that focus on airflow and maximizing compatibility for really big components. And with this particular FX variant, it's also about showing off some pretty serious ARGB lighting. Speaking of maximizing compatibility, the way they've done that is by making the case really big. It's so big that you really shouldn't run into any problems fitting the biggest hardware that you can find. The highest end GPUs, really big CPU air coolers, and full-size 420mm radiators. All that stuff should fit in here no problem, up to and including eATX motherboards as well. So there's a lot of options and a lot of versatility with this new family. The main panel over here is a thick and heavy piece of tempered glass, and it looks like it's got a very light tint to it. It attaches with 2 thumb screws at the back, and that's perfect. That's the way to do it. It's a lot better than having them up against the pane of glass where you have to unscrew them and then your fingers touch it and leave smudges and dirt and all kinds of stuff. We have an all-mesh front panel at the front with some extra ventilation channels on either side. Should let a lot of air pass through pretty easily. To remove it, you just have to pull forward and it pops off. On the other side, you can see there's these little contact pins that pass power from the main chassis to the front for the ARGB, and that's nice, it means no wires. There's a detachable dust filter over the fans, and it's got some really fine mesh on there. Looks like it should catch a lot of dust and dirt. And we have 3 pre-installed 140mm light wings fans, and it can also take 3 120mm fans and radiators from 120 all the way up to 420mm. Taking a look at the I/O panel, we've got USB 3.2 Type-C, dual USB 3.2 Type-A ports, headphone and mic jacks, the power switch, and an ARGB control button. We're going to take a closer look at the ARGB stuff a little bit later when I get the hardware installed, but the basic idea here is a single press of that button is going to cycle through to the next mode or color, and then a long 3-second press, I think it is going to actually sync it up with your motherboard. That way you can use your ARGB motherboard control software to take care of all the lighting if you don't want to have to press the button. Up at the top, we have a removable dust filter. It's the basic magnetic mesh type where you can pop it off, get it cleaned, and put it back on pretty easily. And that's all we get up here. There's no pre-installed fans, and there's no removable tray to get your hardware mounted like we see on some premium cases. Now, I don't necessarily think that's a deal breaker, but just keep it in mind because it means there's going to be a little extra effort required to get your hardware installed up here. This area can support 3 120 or 140mm fans or radiators from 120 up to 420mm, just like the front. That's nice because you can take up either the front or the top with a big radiator and then still have room for up to 3 140mm fans to get that airflow going in here. Some cases don't have equal support like that in the front and the top, but with this one, you don't have to worry. Turn this guy around so we can see the other side for a second. So this side panel is completely solid and it comes off with 2 thumb screws at the back, just like the other one, the glass one on the other side. Pop this guy off and the big difference you're gonna see is on the other side. So over here we have a whole bunch of sound dampening material. It's a nice thick padded layer. You see that on a lot of Be Quiet cases because they're called Be Quiet and they have to do something to try and reduce the sound. So this case is supposed to be all about airflow and performance, so you don't get it on the front, the top, or anywhere else, but they did stick it here on the back panel behind the motherboard, so hopefully that helps reduce some of that unwanted noise. There's a lot of open space back here for cable management, and the motherboard tray and even the PSU mount is actually offset towards the other side of the case, and that opens up a lot of room to be able to manage your cables, to tie things down, and even just to get your hands in here to work. It's a smart design move right there. For storage, out of the box, you really only have one option for a 3.5-inch drive, and it's right here next to this ARGB hub. You can mount that guy on there, and if you take the hub off, if you don't want to use it, you can mount another one there as well. But who wants to do that? If you paid for this case, you probably want to take advantage of that hub. It's super convenient to have. And you can also mount 2 2.5-inch SSDs there as well. And also I should mention this whole panel can come off, this whole metal panel, and slide down and mount right here because there's an extra set of mounts for it. So if you wanted to have it closer to the bottom of your case for cable management, you can do that. This panel over here comes off with a single thumb screw, and that's got room for 2 more 2.5-inch SSDs. You can route your cables through here, through this little gap, and this plastic piece even comes off altogether if you need a little bit of extra space to work. So with this guy installed, that brings us up to space for 3 2.5-inch SSDs, 1, 2, and 3 right there. Then we have this little bracket down here that can be installed in the bottom. You can adjust the position to free up space at the front for big radiators or push it all the way forward to maximize space for the PSU area and all your cables. What this thing does is allow you to add 2 of Be Quiet's drive cages. These let you mount 2 more 3.5-inch drives or 4 2.5-inch SSDs because each cage can hold 2 SSDs. So assuming you're not removing the fan hub, this brings the total drive capacity up to 3 for 3.5-inch hard drives and 7 for 2.5-inch SSDs. So not too bad overall. That's a decent amount of storage, but there's a bit of a catch. They do ship this bracket with the case, but they don't give you any of those drive cages. These guys right here that hold the 3.5-inch or 2.5-inch SSDs, you don't get them, you gotta buy them separately. So if you wanna take advantage of the full storage potential that the case offers, you're gonna have to spend a little bit of extra money and buy these separately. It is what it is. So this circuit board here is what controls the fans and ARGB lighting. There's 4 connected out of the box, and there's space for up to 4 more. So you can have up to 8 ARGB fans all controlled from this one hub. It works like any other fan controller hub. It's super simple. You just plug stuff into it, but it looks different because it doesn't have a fancy plastic cover like you would get if you bought some aftermarket fans. But in this case, it doesn't really matter because it's hidden behind that solid side panel. Other than that, we have some cable tie-down points spread out throughout the back and a bunch of pass-throughs to help get everything where it needs to go. And the case does ship with a handful of zip ties to help get you started. Around back, we have the I/O shield cut out and a pre-installed 140mm light wings fan. It'll also take 120mm or radiators up to 140mm. There's 7 PCIe expansion slots here, and they can be flipped onto their side to allow for vertical GPU mounting. It's a pretty easy switch to make, and it adds an extra level of versatility for system builders, and I love that. I'm all about having as many options as possible. The case does not ship with a PCIe riser cable, so if you want to go vertical, you're going to have to buy your own separately. This PSU mounting bracket's removable with 4 thumb screws. You can mount that to the back of your PSU, and then installation's really easy because all you have to do is slide the unit in and tighten the thumb screws back up. The maximum supported PSU length's 305mm without an optional fan mounted in the bottom, and 260mm with a fan. 260mm is still huge though. Even Be Quiet's own flagship 1600 watt Dark Power Pro 13 is only 200mm long, so in terms of PSU compatibility, there really shouldn't be any issues. Before we look at the interior space, I just want to quickly show you what's on the bottom. There's some big feet with rubber padding for grip and vibration reduction. And then there's one big long dust filter down here. It slides out towards the front for easy cleaning and then fits inside a set of clips along the edges there, pop it back in, and you're good to go. On the inside, there's some nice big cutouts to pass cables through. A big one along the bottom here, and then there's another one along the top edge above the motherboard tray. This big punch out's for your CPU power feed, and this is another really nice design move. Gives you a little bit of extra room to work right there. We have the main pass-through here covered by this shield to clean up some of the clutter from your main motherboard power and all the other stuff that gets connected to that side of the board. Motherboards up to ATX are supported in this stock configuration, but you can remove this cable shield and slide it forward to open up another set of mounts for eATX boards. So that right there opens up this case for some insanely big and high-end boards. These are 2.5-inch drive mounts right here, and that's that removable panel I showed you that uses 1 thumb screw when we looked at the back. Put your 2 drives on there and they're going to be visible inside your build. Up near the front, there's a removable ventilated panel, and that's because there's a fan mount in the bottom of the case in this spot. The idea is that you can get some extra airflow up from the bottom and into the main area. You can also just leave it off and have some extra room to mount a pump or a reservoir for a custom loop. Clearances are pretty good because the case is big. There's just a lot of space to work with in there. The maximum CPU cooler height's 180mm, and the maximum GPU length is 430mm, so you can fit some seriously high-end GPUs in here. The hardware I'm using here with this build is an Asus Z790 ATX motherboard with an Intel Core i7-13700K. The CPU cooler is the Deepcool AK620. It's a dual tower air cooler with 2 fans. There's 32GB of DDR5, a couple NVMe SSDs, and this is an Intel Arc A770 limited edition GPU. Building in this thing is, unsurprisingly, pretty easy because it's just big, it's very spacious, lots of room to get your hands in to install everything, to fit your screwdriver, to route cables. They kind of thought of everything and gave you a nice, well-balanced design that just makes everything easy to do, and that's super appreciated. Jumping back to the ARGB, now that we got the system powered on, we got the 2 light bars in the front, and then all those ARGB fans are plugged into that controller hub behind the motherboard tray, and that means everything can be controlled from this button on the I/O panel. All we have to do is press the button and we can cycle through the different preset effects and colors. For the performance testing, I set all the system fan speeds manually for each test, and I should mention that I added in 320mm light wings fans to the top of the case in an exhaust configuration to really see the upper level of performance that you can get with this thing. And the CPU cooler is running with PWM control. At 25% fan speed, the average system noise output was just 42 decibels, a nice quiet result. Moving up to 50% fan speed increased the noise output a lot, but did reduce the temperatures a few degrees, and then bumping up to 100% speed pumped out even more noise and didn't really affect temperatures much. With this many fans, it's going to be important to keep the RPMs as far below 50% as you can manage if you care at all about noise. The overall build quality and attention to detail is phenomenal. And because of that huge amount of versatility for big components, this thing is going to be great for all sorts of different system builds, from gaming all the way up to video editing, as long as you don't need too many hard drives. Because remember, you can only fit 3.5-inch drives in here, unless you take that fan hub out, but who wants to do that? For all the features you're getting with this one, I think the price is worth it. I'm gonna have the full specs and details for you down in the description, along with some purchasing links. Check that stuff out if you want more info or if you're looking to buy one of these, and get subscribed for more content. And we'll see you soon.